by welcoming the Lord Mayor of Dublin, Alison Gilland, the Minister for Justice, Helen McEntee TD, Una Buckley, Deputy Secretary General of the Department of Justice, IOM Ireland Chief of Mission, Lalini Virasamy, and all our invited guests for joining us this afternoon. We'll begin our launch just momentarily with some opening remarks by Minister McEntee. This will be followed by a 20-minute presentation by IOM's Global Migration Data Analysis Centre on the National Migration Governance Indicators Report for Ireland. We'll then hear from Ireland's Chief of Mission and the Deputy Secretary General of the Department of Justice. The Lord Mayor will then make a statement before we close out today's event with a short film created by IOM to mark their 20th anniversary in Ireland. Finally, we've invited some of our attendees to make some closing remarks. We will now hear from the Minister for Justice, Helen McEntee, TD. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to be addressing this celebration of 20 years of IOM in Ireland. I'm really sorry that I can't do so in person, but I want to thank Lalani and her IOM Ireland team for their kind invitation. Of course, we're not just celebrating 20 years of IOM in Ireland. This year is also the 70th anniversary since the establishment of the IOM itself back in 1951. It is now considered by many to be the leading intergovernmental organisation in the field of migration that works closely with a range of partners. The breadth of your work and the reach of the organisation is illustrated by IOM with representation in over 60 countries worldwide, including Ireland. There is no more important work than yours, providing humanitarian assistance to migrants in need, including refugees and internally displaced people. 50 years after its foundation, IOM opened its office in Ireland in 2001, with Ireland becoming a member state in June of 2002. Since then, IOM Ireland has become actively engaged in a number of areas, all of which seek to positively contribute to facilitating and managing migration. These include the promotion of international migration law, policy debate and guidance, protection of migrants' rights, migration health, and the gender dimension of migration. The opening of the office in Ireland, coincidentally, or perhaps fortunately, came at a time when Ireland was dealing with greater demands on its immigration and international protection services. People will remember that in the early noughties there were significant increases in asylum applications made in Ireland. My department has enjoyed a very close and a very positive working relationship with IOM Ireland since its mission was established. This is based on our shared goal of effective migration management and mutual recognition of the economic, the social and the cultural benefits of migration to our shores. Our work together has focused on a number of important areas, including family reunification, anti-human trafficking, the resettlement progress for refugees, and voluntary assisted returns and reintegration programmes. Like all public services, my department and our immigration service delivery have had to adapt to new circumstances, and of course, because of the pandemic, we will continue to do so. Our work with organisations like IOM Ireland is crucial in helping us to deliver a fair and a responsive immigration service. Today, we launched together the National Migration Governance Indicators Report. This report is a tangible output of our close cooperation and will allow us to track our progress against the indicators for the benefits of all migrants in Ireland. I recently announced that the government has approved my proposal for a scheme to regularise thousands of undocumented migrants and their families who are living in Ireland. I believe this is a monumentous, a once-in-a-generation scheme that will bring some much-needed certainty and peace of mind to the thousands of people who are already living here, who are making a valuable contribution to our society and indeed to our economy too. Many of these people have been so vulnerable due to their current immigration status, and I believe that the support of trusted organisations like IOM Ireland will be crucial in encouraging eligible people to come forward when the scheme opens for applications in January. Finally, I would like to wish Lalani and her team in IOM Ireland every success in the coming years. I can assure them that my department and I will continue to support their endeavours and the delivery of our shared objectives for the benefit of our migrant communities.
Okay. Now, I would like to invite IOM to give a presentation on the global migration findings. Thank you.
Thank you. Dear Minister for Justice, representatives of the Department of Justice, Lord Mayor of Dublin, colleagues, dear participants, a very good afternoon. I am Reshma Kanusami, Data Officer at IOM's Global Migration Data Analysis Center, based in Berlin, and I'm very pleased, even if virtually, to be participating in this event celebrating IOM Ireland's 20th anniversary and launching during this special occasion the Migration Governance Indicators Profile for Ireland. So, next slide, please. So I will be briefly presenting on what the MGI is about, the process in Ireland, and also present some of the key findings. And finally, we'll end the presentation with a few points on how these findings can be used. Next slide. So what are the MGI indicators and where do they come from? Next slide. There was the necessity to face the challenges and maximize the opportunities that mobility and migration brings. And this has been recognized with the inclusion of migration in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which highlights the positive contribution of migrants to inclusive growth and development, and specifically for Target 10.7, which concerns orderly, safe, regular, and responsible migration and mobility of people, including through the implementation of planned and well-managed migration policies. Next slide. So there was this need to help countries understand what well-managed migration policies might look like in practice. In view of this, IOM worked with the Economist Impact, which was previously known as the Economist Intelligence Unit, to develop the Migration Governance Indicators, a set of approximately 90 indicators, which is based on IOM's Migration Governance Framework, a set of 3 principles and objectives, which help illustrate what good migration governance looks like in practice. So this set of migration governance indicators help countries identify good practices as well as potential areas with potential for further development, and can help offer insights on the policy levels that countries can use to develop their migration governance structures. Next slide. So the MGI assessment comprises of 94 indicators that assess whether certain policies relevant to migration governance are in place. For example, does the country have a policy or strategy to combat hate crimes, violence, xenophobia, and discrimination against migrants, among others? And the results are compiled in what we call the MGI matrix, which is then the basis of the migration governance profile, a summary of these findings. It is also important to highlight at this point that the analysis presented in the migration governance profile reflects the country's priorities. So it accounts for local challenges and opportunities specific to that country, even if the indicators in the MGI matrix are standard for all countries participating in the MGI assessment. And more than just an assessment, the MGI really is a voluntary and consultative process where the MGI provides a space for government and other stakeholders to build a common understanding of challenges and to promote solutions. Next slide, please. So, so far, we have 92 national governments from all regions of the world and 50 plus local authorities which are participating in the migration governance indicators assessment, both at the national level and at the local level. And we have more than 70 MGI profiles which have been published on the migration data portal. Next slide. So when it concerns Ireland, the process in Ireland began so Ireland participated in the 6th phase of the MGI process, of the MGI assessment. It's also important to mention that IOM Ireland carried out a rapid policy survey in May 2020 in partnership with the Irish Department of Justice and of Justice with the objective of gaining a more comprehensive view of policy measures which were implemented in Ireland in response to the coronavirus from a migration governance lens. So a report was produced, and the report examines the extent to which migrants and asylum seekers in Ireland were included in the government's policy responses to COVID-19 from a migration governance perspective. So this assessment was piloted in Ireland, and the COVID module was then included in the subsequent MGI assessments. So Ireland confirmed its participation to the MGI assessment in January 2021. We conducted an induction meeting in February 2021 and the interministerial consultation where we discussed the findings of the report and where the report was also finalized for validation, which happened in November 2021. And finally, we published the report in December 2021. We also want to highlight that Dublin will be participating in the local MGI assessment as from January 2022. Next slide, please. So the following slides just present some of the key findings of the MGI assessment in Ireland, which is divided, as mentioned previously, between the 6 MyGov domains. So the first domain concerns migrants' rights. The assessment found as an example of well-developed area for Ireland that regular migrants have equal access to health services as nationals. There are existing bilateral agreements, for example, with Australia, concerning the portability of social security entitlements and benefits. And it also highlights a couple of areas which can be identified as gaps. So, for example, only EEA nationals benefit from equal access to private sector employment as nationals, and Irish citizens living abroad do not have the right to vote in national elections unless they are on official military or diplomatic duty abroad. So the report describes those findings in more detail, but the key findings are published on the Migration Data Portal. Next slide. So the second dimension of the MGI assessment concerns follow-up government approach, where we provide an overview of the structure in place in terms of, for example, the Department of Justice provides a clear and transparent set of rules and regulations about migration. The Department of Foreign Affairs engages with the diaspora. Central Statistics Office regularly collects and publishes data on migration. And what has been identified as an area with potential for further development would be increased interministerial consultation mechanisms on migration issues. Next slide, please. So the third domain concerns partnerships, and it looks at partnerships about migration governance at different levels. So at the national level, at the international level, national level, and also regional level. So, for example, this dimension highlights that Ireland is a member of the Prague process, among others. There are existing MOUs, for example, with the UK, on free movement and residence of Irish and British citizens. And an area which was identified as a gap was that Ireland is not formally engaged with the private sector on agenda setting for migration-related issues. Next slide. So the fourth domain concerns well-being of migrants. And again, indicators in this domain highlighted the fact that the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment assesses and monitors labor market demand for immigrants. There is a critical skills employment permit designed to attract highly skilled migrants. There is also a scheme allowing international students to work in the country after graduation. And gaps concern limited programs in place to promote the financial inclusion of migrants and families, among others. The fifth domain, next slide please. So the fifth domain concerns the mobility dimension of crisis. So the main highlight for this domain would be the framework for major emergency management, which includes provisions for preventing and addressing displacement impacts of disasters. And gaps that were identified included the fact that there were no specific measures to address migrants, to assist migrants before, during, or after crisis. Next slide. So the last domain concerns safe, orderly, and regular migration. This domain highlights the fact that the border management unit officers receive regular training, including on cultural sensitivity, and the fact that the DOJ regularly publishes information about its counter-trafficking activities, among others. And one area that can be further developed includes a system to monitor visa overstays, which is currently not in place for Ireland. Next slide. So now that the MGI assessment has been conducted, that we have those findings, how can these findings be used? Next slide. So the benefits of the MGI exceed the results of themselves of the research. It is actually the foundation or the baseline for future work on policy development, in the sense that the MGI enables discussions between different ministries and stakeholders, and these discussions can help build policy coherence and inform government's migration policies. These policies and these priorities can be translated into measurable goals and formulated into clear action plans to help advance comprehensive migration governance structures. And through projects and activities, the government can also advance towards the achievement of these goals, using the MGI as a baseline to track progress. For example, MGI follow-up assessments, which are conducted to update the migration governance profile after 2-3 years. So they had to report on progress that has been made toward the achievement of both national and international commitments, such as the GCM and the SDGs. For example, governments can use this information for their voluntary national reviews to present good practices and actions that have been taken or are planned to address gaps that have been highlighted in the migration governance profile. And finally, governments can also exchange best practices and innovative solutions with other governments that have conducted the MGI or other countries within the region. Next slide, please. So as mentioned, the MGI can also contribute to the achievement of commitments made at the global level. The MGI was initially developed to help states address the migration components of the 2030 agenda, particularly SDG target 10.7 on safe, orderly, and regular migration through well-managed policies, migration policies. And target 10.7 was also at the basis of the creation of the Global Compact for safe, orderly, and regular migration. And in this regard, the MGI can also help states address the policy implications behind the 23 GCM objectives. So even if the MGI was not developed specifically for the GCM, it still captures all 23 objectives. So for both the GCM and the SDGs, the achievement of goals is advanced by the formulation of good migration policies, and the MGI offers countries that opportunity to gain an insight on what these policies can look like in practice, and how can governments also use these to track progress on their commitments. Next slide, please. So finally, an example from another country. Next slide. For example, the government of Canada decided to use the MGI to report in the progress they are making on the GCM. And we have a number of other countries as well, following Canada's example. For example, Iraq, Cambodia, Mauritania, which are also using their MGI assessment to support their GCM implementation. Next slide. The Government of Canada was also among the first ones to have completed the national assessment together with a local assessment for the city of Montreal. So it was part of the pilot phase for the local MGI. And the local MGI assessment allows to complement the results found at national level by analyzing some of the most interesting initiatives that are being implemented at a city, province, or state level. So this is an approach that has now been replicated by more than 50 local authorities, including now the city of Dublin, which will start its local MGI assessment in January. So that will be all from my side. Thank you very much for paying attention during this presentation, and if you have any questions or comments, they are welcome.
Thank you, Ishma, for that insightful presentation. I'll now hand the floor over to Lilini Virasamy, the Chief of Mission of IOM Ireland. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. Lord Mayor of Dublin, Alison Gilligan, Minister McEntee, Minister of Justice, invited guests, Una Buckley, Deputy Secretary General of the Department of Justice. Good afternoon. 2021 represents an important year for IOM in so many ways. As we celebrate our 70th anniversary and 20 years of our presence in Ireland, it is also an opportunity for us to reflect on our commitment and actions. We recall the commitment of the 19 states which met in Brussels on the 5th of December 1951 to discuss about the massive movement of population following World War II. 70 years later, we are today in a world in which people are on the move more than at any other time recorded history. Approximately 1 of every 7 people are migrants, and there remains much to do and learn on how to manage such important migration flows. But dignity comes first, foremost, the dignity to choose. I am particularly pleased to launch the Migration Governance Indicators Report with the Department of Justice, and sincere thanks for Minister McEntee and Una Buckley to be present today. Heartfelt thanks to all government bodies in Ireland as well, which have contributed to the preparation of this report in collaboration with the GIMDAC in Berlin and the Economist Intelligence Unit, now Economist Impact. The MGI for Ireland, through a set of various indicators as we've seen, showcases some interesting good practices worthwhile disseminating at global level. Ireland remains a fascinating piece of this global migration mosaic. From a key emigrating society, the country has experienced in a bit more than 2 decades an important presence of migrants who have enriched the country's narrative and perspectives. Since we are also here today in the midst of the celebration of the International Migrants' Day, which the theme this year is harnessing the potential of human mobility, allow me to commend the government's initiative, again, to regularize undocumented migrants in Ireland. This impactful policy decision is a concrete demonstration of the government's level of compassion and discernment towards responsible migration governance. Dear invited guests, I would like to reiterate our sincere gratitude to the Irish government and all the authorities involved, as well as our partners, particularly the NGO sector, for your continued support to the mission. We have worked with you all in a very close partnership to provide technical, practical support to migrants in need of voluntary return and reintegration services, to support victims of trafficking, refugees who have been granted permission to bring their immediate family members to Ireland, as well as the resettlement of refugees and the relocation of asylum seekers. From 2001 to date, we have supported over 4,700 individuals to return to over 130 countries. We have had the privilege to witness many a happy and emotional reunion at Dublin Airport through the support provided to over 1,000 family members of refugees in Ireland through our family reunification program, with the top 4 countries of origin being Syria, DRC, Afghanistan, and Somalia. We have also assisted over 2,900 individuals to be resettled to Ireland from a variety of locations, including France, Lebanon, Jordan, Thailand, Sudan, Tunisia, Uganda, and Yemen. This includes unaccompanied minor children from the refugee camps in Calais, and a special thanks to the IRPP for their continued collaboration and support. Whilst the current crisis reminds us of the plight of refugees worldwide, it is important to remember also those in need of assistance elsewhere that do not make the news headlines. And I would like to highlight the incredible work carried out by our sister agency, UNHCR. We have achieved a lot, but I believe the growing and changing trend in migration calls for more and diversified actions as well. In 2021, we have developed new initiatives in collaboration with the Government of Ireland, including the Protect Project, which aims to provide assistance to victims of trafficking and survivors of SGBV. The world is changing, and COVID-19 has highlighted and taught us that those most vulnerable in society continue to need our support, assistance, and protection, now more so than ever. As highlighted by the IOM Director General in his recent statement of the 112th Council meeting, solidarity with migrants has never been more urgent. I would like to also highlight the innovative initiative supported by the Department of Foreign Affairs and the IOM Development Fund on the setting up of a global migration media academy. As we know, discourse on migration has evolved, and the representation of migration as a threat to social cohesion and security has monopolized public debates in various settings. Therefore, changing the narrative of migration to a more balanced and fact-based discourse is a responsibility and a need for all those who are active players in the public debate, including the media. Let me again, therefore, praise the Government of Ireland for joining this crucial initiative, which I have no doubt will be viewed as contributing significantly to fulfilling the objectives of the Global Compact on Migration. I would like to conclude my remarks by mentioning the excellent working relationship we have recently developed with the Lord Mayor's office. It is a great honor to welcome you, Lord Mayor, today in our event, and we are very much looking forward to working closely with you and your team in the preparation of the local MGI report for next year for Dublin City, as well as the implementation of a migrant forum for the city. I thank you for your attention. Gorot Mahagat. Thank you.
Thank you, Lalini. I'd now like to invite the Deputy Secretary General of the Department of Justice, Una Buckley, to say a few words. Thank you.
For a second there, I couldn't unmute myself. I thought this was going to be a very short speech. Lalini, Lord Mayor and colleagues, thank you so much for inviting me to speak at today's event. It was a really important one, and I'm really sorry I can't be in the Epic Museum with you today. It's actually the second significant immigration event that hosted there this week. We held our third online citizenship ceremony there on Monday. And in fact, I'm delighted to say that we've managed to overcome the challenges of the pandemic sufficiently this year to ensure that more than 11,000 new citizens could be welcomed in Ireland this year and could take their oath of fidelity to the nation. So between that, the Afghani admission program, a family reunification program we've announced, and of course the announcement of the undocumented regularisation scheme, I think it's fair to say that the Department of Justice was very unusually for us nothing but a good news department for the last few days. It won't last, but we've had a good run for the last 10 days or so. And I think that is very much because of the arc we are on, the sort of maturity model that we are on, that IOM have accompanied us on over the last 20 years. So I want to congratulate Lalini and all her IOM Ireland team on reaching this milestone of 20 years in Ireland, and indeed the 70th anniversary of your organisation's founding. As the Minister said earlier, IOM established its mission in Ireland during a period of great change and demand on our immigration and international protection services. Effectively, Ireland has been a recipient of significant levels of migration only for 2 decades. So IOM's partnership with us has been a great assistance as we have grappled with this new challenge. And I'm happy to say that over the last 20 years, our two organisations have proactively developed and strengthened our working relationship. IOM Ireland ranks as a trusted partner for the Department of Justice. And hopefully they will stay with us in the Department and in the Government as we continue to grow and change, and as we address the challenges of a multicultural and multi-ethnic society. And Reshma has given a very good description of some of those things that we still continue to have to work on. As well as giving us an international dimension, IOM has also provided expert assistance and practical support for our refugee and humanitarian assistance programmes. They provided logistical support since 2015 to the Irish Refugee Protection Programme, including by making travel arrangements, as Alfie said, for refugees accepted under the programme to come to the state. And I think that you've given a great description of some of the desperate and people with needs that Ireland has accepted in over the course of those few years, and Ireland has been able to make their home here in a way where they can be protected in a stable and safe society. And that is a great boon and blessing that Ireland can give to the people that we welcome here. IOM supports the Afghan Submission Programme, which will open for applications later on today, is also very much appreciated by the Minister and everyone in the Department. Another important area of collaboration between us is the Voluntary Assisted Return and Reintegration Programme, and this is a free service for people thinking about returning to their country of origin. It's open to asylum seekers, irregular migrants, victims of trafficking, and unaccompanied minors from non-EU countries who wish to return home voluntarily but don't have the financial means or the necessary documentation to do so. And as we all know, and as many Irish people themselves experience, returning to your home country is also part of being a migrant. In fact, it can be a very valuable part for your country of origin. So it's an important service that we provide for people that might want to go home. Combating human trafficking is already mentioned, and obviously that is the very dark side of the migration story. It is and will continue to be a priority for the Department. IOM are the recognised body under the current national referral mechanism for the repatriation of victims of human trafficking in Ireland, and they have been working with us on the development of a new national referral mechanism which will make it easier for human trafficking victims to come forward, to seek protection and to seek supports. We want victims of human trafficking to know that they will be supported in Ireland. Of course, for some, their wish is to return home, as I've said, and it's important when that is the case, it is facilitated in a safe and secure way, and the state agencies and IOM work closely to arrange this. And last October, we also partnered with IOM Ireland to jointly launch a public awareness initiative on human trafficking with key messages that human trafficking is a crime, anyone can be exploited, and to empower the public to recognise the signs of human trafficking. Raising that awareness intensifies the reach of our messaging. So the Anyone Trafficked campaign that we have worked with IOM on for the past 2 years is having a real impact. We're also collaborating with IOM on the cultural mediation project to build the capacity of state professionals who work with or for migrants, and to help ensure victims of gender-based violence and trafficking can better access information and engage with support and referral services. That helps promote a culturally sensitive approach to victims through the use of cultural mediators. And of course, the Department has been working with IOM on migration governance indicators, which we are launching today. Today, 51 countries have engaged in this exercise, and we're proud today that Ireland is one of those. And I'm delighted to hear, Lord Mayor, that Dublin is following, so that's very good to hear. I should say, on behalf of the staff of the Department who are listening in, my apologies, because what happens is that Lalini approaches me with great ideas like this, and I say, yes, that's a great idea, but of course, there's people who work for me who are trying to order or to put together the information. So I want to thank them very much for doing that and for being so good as to not give out to me when I agree to these exercises. As a department, one of our key goals is to deliver a fair immigration system in the digital age. And we know that Ireland benefits economically, socially and culturally from the diversity brought to our country by those who choose to travel to visit, to study, to work and to live. And we're constantly striving to improve our immigration service delivery for the benefit of our customers. And working with organisations like IOM Ireland is a key part of how we do this. So I want to
Thank you, Una, for that comprehensive overview of the relationship between the department and IOM. I'd now like to hand over to the Lord Mayor of Dublin, Alison Gilland. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Minister, Chief Commission, Lalini, Deputy General Secretary, friends and colleagues. I very much welcome today's first publication of the Migrants Government Indicators Report for Ireland, and I thank you for the invitation to speak on behalf of our city of Dublin, a city that very much reflects global diversity and is home to many, many migrants and new Irish communities. Today in Dublin, nearly 1 in 5 of our residents was born outside the state, and we boast nearly 97,000 people who speak one of 65 languages other than English or Irish at home. The talent, skills and resources that our migrants bring to our city gives us a competitive social and economic edge. However, proactively supporting the effective inclusion of our migrants can sometimes be a challenge. One approach that I know that works is empowering our new communities to collaboratively work with us and our Dublin City Council services and structures. As you know, earlier this year, under the former Lord Mayor Hazel Chew and our local community development committee, Dublin City Council published a framework towards an integration and intercultural strategy for Dublin City that reinforces our goal of ensuring that all residents and visitors, regardless of social or cultural background, feel a sense of ownership and engagement with the city, feel safe in their communities, and are welcome to fully participate in the community, social, cultural, business, and political life of the city. The strategy itself will be forthcoming in the new year. During my own tenure, I am conscious to walk the walk of our integration and inclusion strategy, and that involves working alongside our Assistant Garda Commissioner Anne-Marie Cagney and her police teams across the city to improve citizen safety, working with our Dublin City Interfaith Forum to mark the various faith and belief celebrations represented in our city, and working with organisations such as Ruhana that support migrants that have been trafficked and exploited. As the Deputy General Secretary indicated, the darker side, sadly, of migration in our country. I'm also delighted to support the work of our Dublin City Council Intercultural Development Coordinator, Joy Enyola, working under the North East Inner City Initiative to empower new communities. Last month, 16 local people graduated from the Intercultural Ambassadors Programme led by Joy. This is the first programme of its kind in Dublin's North East Inner City, and indeed in Dublin itself. The 16 ambassadors represent 12 countries and 4 continents and speak a total of 21 languages between them. They will be a great asset in promoting inclusion of our diverse communities in that area, and also an example of what can be achieved in other diverse communities. Most recently, you may have seen the new backdrop to our nativity scene at the Mansion House that I commissioned. It represents the beautiful and varied diversity of gender, race, ability, sexual orientation, family status and family situation in our city. A visual representation of inclusion and voice in Dublin. I and Dublin City Council will continue our work, and we will engage the findings in this report. I know particularly from the report that Ireland does not have a specific policy or strategy to combat hate crimes, violence, xenophobia or discrimination against migrants. I know it's in train. As Lord Mayor, I am committed to continue to working with Garda Síochána, the government and others to ensure that we all work to prevent racism, xenophobia and discrimination. And I urge the government to act speedily for the introduction of such laws. I'm also committed to working on the development of a specific strategy to combat hate crimes and ensure our city is a safe place for all to live, work and recreate. It will be remiss of me not to formally welcome the Minister's recent announcement to offer a path towards citizenship for migrants with an irregular status. This not only living in Dublin but across the country a path to regularise their status, and equally allow our society to more openly acknowledge and benefit from the valuable contribution they make to our society. So thank you, Minister, and all who worked with her. Finally, I am pleased to formally acknowledge that Dublin City will be collaborating with IOM Ireland early in the next year to develop a specific MGI report for Dublin City, and thank you for kindly acknowledging that. This commitment agreed between us to develop a local migration governance indicator assessment for Dublin City in 2022 will allow the city to further support the many thousands of migrants who now call Dublin home, and will greatly support our city in developing policy measures which will be included in the Migrant Forum, another initiative that we are looking forward to collaborating on with IMO Ireland as of next year. This Migrant Forum aims to serve as a community-based, cross-sector, consultative, participatory process, whereby Dublin City Council, supported by IOM Ireland, will facilitate human rights-aligned dialogues aimed at addressing measures and practices that hinder the full enjoyment of migrants' basic rights. The forum will also constitute the main platform which will monitor progress made by our forthcoming integration and intercultural strategy for Dublin City Council. I very, very much welcome the collaboration we have achieved to date and value tremendously the close working relationship that is being developed by my office as Lord Mayor and IMO in Ireland. And I wish IOM a very happy celebration and look forward to strengthening our collaboration over the next 20 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, for those encouraging words. We will now see a short film commemorating the 20th anniversary of IOM in Ireland. Thanks.
"2021 is a very important year for us. It marks the 70th anniversary of IOM globally, as we were created on the 5th of December 1951, with 19 countries only. From the aftermath of the Second World War to where we found ourselves today with COVID-19 and the growing changes in migration and mobility patterns, IOM today is a global organization focused exclusively on migration with a global footprint in more than 500 locations in the world.
My favorite part of this job is the opportunity to meet people from different countries with different cultural backgrounds. I am glad to work in IOM because IOM is contributing to changes in the world by helping migrants in need.
What I love most about it is seeing the real-life impact that you have on people's lives.
In IOM, we believe that migrants are, first of all, human beings. Beyond the label of migrant, they are human beings. So in IOM, we always make sure that the integrity of people that we look at just as migrants who are human beings, that integrity is not affected because of the migration process. Migrants need to be supported because as human beings, if they are well supported, it's good for themselves, for their own personal life, but it's also good for society.
We are also celebrating 20 years in Ireland, and it has been our honor to serve and protect migrants here. Over the past 10 years, the profile of migrants has evolved, and it is important that we continue to support our member state and partners here in Ireland in addressing the migration challenges and opportunities in a holistic manner. We are able to offer today more diverse support services within various areas, namely counter-trafficking, integration, policy and research, and we will continue to do so in the years to come in line with IOM's strategic vision and country plan.
It's been incredible to be part of an organisation working at such a global scale, and especially on IOM Ireland's 20th anniversary. It's great to join a legacy of impact they've had in the past and carry that forward into the future.
I'm very happy to have this opportunity to mark 20 years of IOM's presence in Ireland. A lot has happened over those 20 years, and particularly since IOM joined the UN family 5 years ago. The work of the organisation internationally in assisting migrants and displaced people in vulnerable situations, in providing support to governments, particularly on the implementation of the Global Compact for Migration, and as coordinator of the UN Network on Migration, is crucial. Ireland is particularly proud of our collaboration with IOM on working to address the problem of misleading narratives of migration through the Global Migration Media Academy. I look forward to continuing our fruitful relationship into the future.
We've worked with the IOM for over 20 years to support people who wish to do so to return home. And we are assured that any person who wishes to return home can do so in a safely and timely manner in conjunction with the IOM. I wish to congratulate the IOM and the team that we've worked with for the past 20 years for all their important work in this area.
I'd like to say congratulations to IOM Ireland on your 20th anniversary. Some of the recent initiatives that we've undertaken together, particularly efforts to introduce counselling and support services to migrants, are really valuable. And I look forward to working closely with you over the next 20 years.
We've been working with IOM for the past number of years to support wide awareness campaigns in Ireland on the issue of human trafficking. Our collaboration with IOM has been a huge benefit to us at MECPATS. So from MECPATS, on behalf of my colleagues and I, we'd like to wish IOM a very happy 20th anniversary and keep up the good work, and we look forward to working with you in the future again.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank IOM for everything that you have been doing for all the migrants from Latin America. And it's just amazing to see how many people have been really touched by the work that IOM does.
Let me once again thank the Government of Ireland, our donors, partners and NGOs that have worked closely with us for this past 20 years. And we look forward to strengthening our support towards the betterment of migrants.
I hope you all enjoyed that short overview of IOM's activities in Ireland over the last 2 decades. I'd like to invite some members of our audience now to make a few brief comments. So could we first hear from Evelyn Byrne, Director of the Irish Refugee Protection Programme, please. No. No, well then, in that case, we might move on to Mr. George Hegarty, Migration Advisor from the Development Cooperation and Africa Unit at the Department of Foreign Affairs.
Hello, thank you. In congratulating IOM on 20 years of presence in Ireland, I won't repeat what my colleagues said in the video just now. All what I'd like to do is remind people of something that really brings home how significant migration has been for Ireland and why it's an issue that matters for the Department of Foreign Affairs. The global population in 1840 is estimated to have been between 800 million and 1 billion people. The global population today is 8 or 9 times higher than that, between 7.5 and 8 billion. The population of the island of Ireland, in 1841, was 8.2 million. According to the census here for that year, and it may have been higher. The population of the island of Ireland today is 6.9 million. That's 15% lower. Now, emigration alone doesn't explain that problem completely. The famine that provoked the massive increase in outward migration resulted in the loss of perhaps 1 million lives. But emigration is by far the most significant factor. Now, if we look at other European countries that are associated with strong traditions of migration, we can see that Italy's population, for example, is 2.5 times higher than it was in 1840. Portugal's population is 3 times higher than it was in 1840. In other words, the impact of migration on Ireland has been quite uniquely profound, and it's a lot more than tradition. And that's why migration matters to us in the Department of Foreign Affairs as a global issue. That's why the Global Compact matters. That's why tackling what are frequently the very same negative stereotypes that affected Irish migrants in the past matters. And all of that is why our partnership with IOM matters. So, once again, congratulations and happy anniversary. Thank you.
Thank you, George. If we could hear from Barbara Connon, CEO of Ruhama next, please.
Thank you, Ellie, for inviting me to speak today. Delighted to speak at the presence of the IOM Ireland's presence in Ireland for 20 years, and also on the night of your report on migration, the Migration Governance Indicator report. IOM Ireland and Ruhama have shared a close relationship over this period on a number of initiatives related to supporting victims of human trafficking. We share a mutual drive to combat the scourge of human trafficking in our communities and to provide safe, supported and effective frameworks around victims so that they can pursue a life after their ordeal. Reaching the important milestone of 20 years presence in Ireland is a huge achievement for IOM Ireland branch. Globally, the IOM has supported 100,000 victims of human trafficking worldwide. Ruhama and IOM Ireland collaborated on the annual Untrafficked campaign. It's key that we raise awareness amongst the Irish public about both the silence and the suffering that human beings endure in order for their traffickers to meet sexual demands of buyers. Women and girls made up approximately 65% of victims of trafficking globally, and most of these victims are trafficked for the purpose of sexual exploitation, and the vast majority are migrant women. One of the women who participated had this to say about her experience. So many men never stop at all times of the day and the night. Sometimes I had to meet them in other places. I got more when I had to go out. I don't even want to talk about what that was like. I want to blot it from my mind and from my life. I feel ashamed about what I did, what I had to do in that situation. I think when you hear that, it really highlights the importance and the value of the work that we do in this area. IOM Ireland and Ruhama also collaborate in assisting victims of human trafficking to return to their countries of origin. For many victims, their experience came about from the desire to leave their home countries to find a better life for themselves and or their families. Many intended to send money home, having travelled to the promise of a new job, on the promise of a new job, but their hopes and dreams soon turned into a living nightmare. For some victims, the return to their families and their countries of origin is key to their healing and the reintegration process of coming full circle and beginning to put their traumatic pasts behind them. We continue to support and collaborate with IOM Ireland with the repatriation of victims when it is deemed the best and safest option to do so. I want to commend the launch of the Migration Governance Indicator report, a key tool in the pursuit of Sustainable Development Goal 10.7 in respect of reducing inequality. The assessment of this progress not only indicates pathways to an optimal system of migration, but it also highlights the potential pitfall areas that provide fertile ground for human trafficking, for the potential for human trafficking. I wish to pay tribute to the work of the Global IOM Network for all their work on the counter-trafficking measures. This includes capacity building of governments, dissemination of preventative and protective measures against vulnerable populations, research and development work in humanitarian settings. Such a comprehensive offering across the global network of IOM provides national and international expertise in bilateral and multilateral forums that undoubtedly creates huge impact in the global fight against human trafficking. I want to conclude by offering my congratulations to IOM Ireland on their 20th anniversary and their 70th anniversary on the larger organisation. We in Ruhama look forward to future collaborations with you in the fight against human trafficking. And I'll finish with a quote. You can choose to look the other way, but you can never say again that you do not know. Thanks and well done to IOM Ireland.
Thank you, Barbara, for those wonderful words. We'd now hear from Salome, the CEO of Akidwa. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you and good afternoon, everyone. Congratulations to IOM. We would really like to congratulate you on this very big day when you are celebrating the 20th anniversary. And we also appreciate the great work that you have been doing and your collaborations with us. I know, as a CEO of Akido, we have worked for many years with IOM. The first time I met the chief of IOM was actually back in 2008. And it was in relation to the issues that we are handling from Akidwa, and also coming across people who may want to go back, who are no longer able to stay here, and they would want to go back while they are still in the process of international protection or applying for international protection. And we've really worked with them very well, including in their work on trafficking of women. Recently, we have engaged in a campaign that they have actually been leading on trafficking, which has been done with a high level of professionalism. And we would like to thank you for that, because you have been able to do it in a manner that help people to understand the issues of trafficking, but also make it easy for the people that, for example, we work with to be able to speak out. I also would like to emphasize on the need and the importance of the work we have been doing with you on information days. Actually, we had one on Tuesday in County Limerick. And this has also helped people to be able to get more information and awareness of how to access support and services as well at the same time. And have been really very helpful to many people in many counties that we have worked with you, such as Sligo, Limerick, Cork, and here in Dublin. We had an information day with you actually in November, which is last month. And some people, in particular women, have found it very, very useful. Out of actually that information day we held last month, 3 women got jobs from the instead, home instead, which is actually one of the groups which was supporting information or was supporting Akida with information on that day. And these 3 women had stayed for a long time without a job. So I didn't want to show you the significance of your work, which you may not find to be very useful or important, but yet it's very, very important and has been very crucial for us here in Akida and the people that we present and support. We've also found it very useful, mainly on the work that you have been doing on giving information and supporting people who want to return. And we know of many people that has actually been able to benefit, whether they went back or not, with the kind of support that you give and the way you have been able to support them, in understanding where they're coming from or how, you can support them in a meaningful way to be able to go back. So we would really like to thank you for this and congratulate you again, and we hope that we are going to strengthen our collaboration and partnership. In particular, we have also benefited in your training that you give to the Gardaí, on trafficking, because since 2017, Akido has actually been included in this information day or training because of the meetings that you called us to hold with you. And you have actually been able to involve us and engage us to be able to provide this training to the Gardaí on the area of genital mutilation. Also, we congratulate you and we thank you because of looking at the broader sense of sexual and gender-based violence and the work that you're actually doing, on medicals or on cultural competency. So we hope to work with you more. We hope to strengthen and, collaborate more, to strengthen our work and collaborate more with you in future. And again, I just want to say thank you and that, we look forward to working with you in future or moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. And finally, I'd like to invite Tom Fell, the Head of Journalism and Communications at NUIG, to say a couple of words. Yeah, Tom, you can go ahead.
Sorry, I'm just trying to put up there. I had difficulty. Thank you very much for the invitation to speak, and in particular, thank you to Nalini for involving me in the work of IOM. By way of very brief introduction, IOM Ireland signed a memorandum of understanding with the National University of Ireland in Galway in April of this year, and it was attended by the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Simon Coveney. And I understand it's one of the first MOUs to be signed with an Irish university. project to try to improve reporting standards of migration. It's a particularly difficult issue, be it social media or be it mainstream media. Migration as a topic is very often poorly reported. Disinformation and misinformation is spread. And the migrant narrative is very often misunderstood, misinterpreted, or downright wrong and incorrect. And that really damages social cohesion. It damages the good work being done by many of the organizations here on building trust and building communities. It damages the ability of communities to integrate. And so it's actually quite important work. We're working with 4 partner countries, Mexico, Morocco, Serbia, and the Philippines, to develop a curriculum for journalism education and hopefully make a difference in actually improving the reporting standards in the mainstream media on how migrants and the migrant narrative get reported, but also to try and tackle some of the toxic disinformation and misinformation that all too often gets spread on social media and, indeed also the political rhetoric that gets spread by populist political parties and so on. We're a very small part of the work that IOM does. I'm always amazed by the number of programs and projects that the team in Ireland are able to do. And I would just like to take this opportunity on behalf of myself and on behalf of the Global Migration Media Academy Project and indeed on behalf of the university to wish IOM a very happy birthday, happy anniversary at your 20 years in Ireland, and to wish you really nothing but success in the years to come. You've got a very important job. Migration is going to be an increasingly important issue for Europe and indeed for the world, be it for those seeking protection, but also for those who are going to be migrating for labour reasons across Europe, and increasingly, as we know, for those who are going to be impacted by environment and climate change in the next half century and more. So success to you, and thank you for the invitation. Thank you very much.
Refugee Protection Programme can join us now and say a few final words. Thanks. Hello, hi Evelyn.
Good afternoon, everyone. Apologies, I'm having very significant connection difficulties this afternoon. I'm delighted to have this opportunity to congratulate IOM on this very important anniversary, and in particular to congratulate Lily on her very strong leadership in the area of migrants in Ireland. It has been our absolute pleasure in the Irish Refugee Protection Programme to work with Lily and the whole team at IOM. Your support in managing our logistics this year in particular, in Beirut and in Amman, were very much appreciated. You're working in extraordinary circumstances, both in very difficult situations countrywide, but also against a background of COVID. And it has been a significant support to us to have your expertise available to us at all times to ensure the safe transfer of refugees and indeed to support our missions when our teams travel abroad. We've come through a lot of changes in IRPP. We've had a change from the Department of Justice to our new department and many other changes on the team, and it has been an absolute value to us to be able to rely on the constant support of IOM through all the changes, so that those colleagues who have less experience always have a backup and expertise available from IOM. So congratulations to you all. I look forward to working with you further. We will be launching our research study in January, and I know that that could be another additional voice to the voice of the refugee in Ireland. Our work is taking more and more significance as the world is becoming more destabilised, and I also want to thank you for for your support in a number of cases, such as our immediate arrivals from Afghanistan, but also some of the cases, the humanitarian cases, which involve very forensic work and which your team have always done willingly and with great support to us. So I wish you very best for the next 20 years, and I hope that our relationship in Department of Children and Equality and IOM will go from strength to strength. Thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn. So to conclude today, I would just like to thank everyone who attended today's event and congratulate both IOM and the Department of Justice on the publication of the MGI Ireland report. As Leilani noted, changing the narrative of migration to a more balanced and fact-based discourse is a responsibility and a need for all of us who are active players in the public debate around migration. And no doubt the recommendations included in this report, if implemented, will go a long way towards meeting our commitment to facilitating the orderly, safe, regular and responsible migration and mobility of people, including through the implementation of planned and well-managed migration policies, and ensuring we maintain the dignity of all migrants while doing so. I would also like to ask you to join me in congratulating IOM on celebrating their 70th anniversary of their foundation and the 20th anniversary of the opening of their mission here in Ireland. Their record over the last 7 decades has been nothing short of incredible. Finally, I'd like to thank the Lord Mayor of Dublin, Alison Gilland, the Minister of Justice, Helen McEntee TD, Una Buckley, the Deputy Secretary General of the Department of Justice, Lalini, the IOM team, and all our invited guests for their contributions today. I hope you will all join us in marking International Migrants Day this Saturday, and may I invite you all to attend our events, and thank you for coming here this afternoon. Thank you.